Hi and welcome to this module on protein and the role for managing migraines and vestibular migraine. So protein is a really important requirement for anybody. So it's part of our macronutrients. So macronutrients include carbohydrates, proteins, and of course fats. We want to keep them healthy fats. And so protein plays loads of roles in the body. It's really responsible for managing blood sugar regulation, which is super important for a migraine or vestibular migraine sufferer. And there's a whole different module on that, which I will give to you. It's also really good at helping support our neurotransmitter function. So we need to be able to make these, and these are actually made within the gut, but it does require proteins. So we need good gut function, and we also need good amino acid profiles, which come from protein, in order to be able to build these neurotransmitters. So that's really important. It's also good at helping reduce down inflammation, because it's good for things like repair work, and building tissues and muscles, and keeping our musculoskeletal nice and strong, part of those components, for example. But it's also good at healing. And so when we are needing to heal the body, you will have a higher requirement of protein than normal, for example. So protein is going to be really important to you guys, and I want you to get familiar with it. And I want you to get familiar with how much protein is in stuff. So protein can come from animal sources. So this is often our meat and fish and things like eggs, but it can also come from vegetable protein. So for example, peas are a really good option here, lentils and beans. These are really, really good options, and they contain loads and loads of protein in them. We want to, when we're only, say for example, if we were vegan or vegetarian and you didn't have any animal type products at all, we can get into the subject of combining our proteins, so we get a complete amino acid profile. And there's a section that I'm going to talk about that on the handout for you, in case that is you. We used to think it needed to be in the same meal sitting, that you needed to try and combine those. We know that's not necessarily the case now. So it's just good to ensure that over a day, for example, that you are getting a good kind of mix of those different types of vegetable protein. So that might be from grains, it might be from vegetables, it might be from nuts and seeds, for example, but we want like a good mixture. If you are vegetarian, and you'll find that you get your protein sources from things like cheese and eggs, be mindful. I'm not saying not to have these, but cheese we know is a big trigger point. So I would certainly suggest exploring taking, because again, it's an aged product, it's high in things like tyramine, and it's also very inflammatory, and it can have hormonal issues to it as well, because of the products that the animal is receiving. But also, this is from lactating cows, and it has things like high insulin growth factor, because it's designed to make the cow grow big really, really fast when they have a baby cow. So it's not necessarily designed for us as humans from an inflammatory point of view, and it can cause different hormonal kind of issues for us. So I just keep that in the back of your mind, and we will explore this as we go through the modules. So be mindful of trying to keep those kind of things like cheese, especially aged cheese especially. And if you are going to want to keep that in, maybe go for things like mozzarella and cream cheeses. These are going to be much lower in those hindering factors, for example, and they're not aged. So you may find that you're better on those type of things, but I want you to keep in mind other areas such as inflammation, or if you have an immune response or something along those lines, that can be triggering too. Also, when it comes to eggs, for some migraine sufferers, they can experience issues with eggs. Not everybody. I'm not saying that's because eggs are an amazing source of protein. Try and go clean, so you can go free range, and if you can even go organic, even better, because again, we want the good cleanness of the fats that we're going to be getting and the proteins from those. And also, if eggs come from sources where they're constantly grain fed, it can be inflammatory, for example. So just be mindful of that in the back of your head. And if we do some food intolerance testing and eggs come back as a bit of an issue, then we can explore removing those for a while and seeing what the impact is. but I thought it was worth mentioning whilst we're here, because all of these things are a bit of a minefield, and what suits one doesn't always suit another. So we want to keep the blood sugar level stable. We want to get the protein in terms of supporting our body's functions, like we've discussed. And it also is really helpful for satiety and keep us full, and avoiding that constant need to snack. So I've given you loads of information here, and I've given you some recipe support here as well. Now, we're going to get into a whole nother area, and I don't want to bog you down at this stage, but I do want you to be mindful that when we are choosing protein sources, if you have issues with histamine, for example, I ideally don't want you to go for the aged meats. So for example, we want to be avoiding things like salamis and pepperonis and those type of things, because they are processed and they are aged, and they do have higher tyramine and histamine content to them. So we want to be avoiding that anyway. But if you do have a histamine issue, then those are the types of things that you do want to be avoiding, and ideally not the super slow cooked things, or the things that have been cooked and then maybe sat on the shelf and you're going to eat kind of 5 days later, because they contain higher histamine in them. So we can discuss that if that's you, because we'll make it individualized to you. But I just wanted to point that out to you as well, because some people that are really sensitive to histamine, and particularly age type foods, they can be a bit of an issue. So as much as I'm asking you to eat your proteins, try and keep it clean, try and keep it fresh if you can. And then if you need more support outside of any of the information I've given you, you can contact me. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this module. I hope it's really helpful to you. And the handout that I've given you, you may wish to print this off and keep it on your fridge, because it is really helpful to kind of refer to. And I've given you a couple of options there for high protein snacks, because this is always helpful, that when you are out and about, or you're on trips, or you're on vacations and whatever, and it's more difficult to be able to grab things, having some supply of something in your handbag or in your pocket and regulating blood sugar can be helpful. So I've given you a few ideas here as well. Okay, see you in the next module.